Hello everyone, it's it's December 9th, 2017. I'm driving a car right now, but I'm gonna tell this story about how I got tangled up with fucking Scientology. And it's a fucking crazy ass story, so this is the only reason I'm recording it and telling it. Alright, so my dad went to Tulane University for law school, which is in New Orleans. And when I was a kid, he'd always talk about, because he played lacrosse on some lacrosse team, like club team, he'd talk about a couple of his friends, and one of them was named Watts Wacker. I remember he'd tell me about this dude and say he was a futurist, and he worked for like big companies and would use like mathematical patterns and trends and come up with like, he would come up with probabilities for future trends for companies and their businesses. And so in 2015, my dad somehow linked up with him again and started going up to visit him in New York City and in Connecticut. He had a house in New York and a house in Connecticut. All right, so then my dad came back like all excited because he'd been hanging out with his buddy Watts. And he tells him about the dude he said Watts is dating this lady named Elizabeth, who's this holistic healer, and she deals with a lot of Hollywood people. She has like Leonardo DiCaprio as her client, and he said she was writing some book with Laura Prepone from the 70s show, also on the Orange is the New Black. And it was some book about like holistic, how Laura Prepone was saying how Elizabeth changed her life and how it, like her diet plan, so she was the star face of the book, and it was her diet plan, and it was a together effort. And then this book that was supposed to be coming out in 2016. Well, my dad went up and she had deprivation chambers where you're suspended in salt water and you're closed off from light. And he came back telling me all about it and how much fun he was having with Watts and Elizabeth. Well, my mom, we were going down to Christmas in Alabama in 2015, and my dad had to be back up for New Year's Eve to go hang out with Elizabeth and Watts. And so we go down here, visit my mom. This is the last time I saw my mom alive, and we all decided to go to the movies on Christmas Day. We were going to go see Star Wars. Now, Watts had called the night before and all excited about the movie. He got me on the phone. I talked to him like a week before, and he wanted me to do three things. One was like, he'd gone through a divorce not that long ago, and his son wasn't speaking to him, so he wanted to know how I dealt with my parents' divorce type deal. And he asked me to read some kind of book and two other things, which I never really did. But so he calls us the day before Christmas, all hyped up about Star Wars, telling me how he used to work with the guy that made Star Wars, Luke, whatever the fuck the guy's name was. George Lucas. He said he used to work with him for 3 years, and he was like, oh, this is the greatest story of good and evil. Long story short, I go to the movies with my dad, my sister, and my mom. On the way, I pass a horse field on the interstate. I see mushrooms growing, the real kind, and it was 75 degrees that day. So I go see Star Wars. I get back. I go pick the mushrooms. I heard I get like 13 big ass shrooms. Now that night, my friend Kyle called me. It was a full moon, I remember, and he was like, "Yeah, the moon you must have been feeling the moon energy. Those shrooms are real big." Because I put a picture on my Facebook page of them compared to the mouse on the computer. All right, so me and my dad have to leave to get back by New Year's Eve. We drive back, and he drops me off in Maryland at the house. So I boil these mushrooms up. Two of my friends come over. We drink them. I don't trip. I really feel I feel this like really clean, weird energy from them. And the amount of shrooms I boil, I should have been tripping balls. And I know shrooms well. I've been picking them for 20 years. It was weird. I just felt this really clean, like, glow come from me. So the next morning I wake up. My dad calls me. He's with Watts and Elizabeth. I can tell they've been drinking. And it honestly started getting on my nerves because he put Elizabeth on the phone. I'd never spoken to this woman. And she starts immediately being like, stop what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what, do you know anything about me? Like, what has my dad told you about me? And she was like, just stop what you're doing. I was about to cuss this lady out and hang up the phone. But instead, for some reason, I say, when's your birthday? She said March 4th. I was like, damn, that's my daughter's birthday. And then I was at my birthday's November 1st, and she goes, that's my mom's birthday. And then she breaks down, starts crying on the phone, saying her dad was some powerful man and ended up dying in prison. Like, he got sentenced to prison for something, like some white collar crime or something, and died on her birthday, and it was still unsolved. And so just by me asking this question, it started this whole series of events that the next thing I know, she's like, oh, you got these mystical powers, you should be paid for your, and I was like, look, sometimes this shit happens, I can't control it, I don't know why I asked you that question, I was about to hang up the phone on you. So then she wants me to come out and visit her, and I'm like, look, I'll teach you what I know, and then you teach me what you know. And so my dad comes back and he's like, you want to go to Hollywood? I'm their book manager. I'm like, what? And so my dad somehow talked his way into being her book manager. And I asked my dad, I was like, do they know you're not a lawyer anymore? He's like, it doesn't matter. I was like, it kind of does if they think you're an attorney and they asked you to be their book manager. Long story short, my dad spends like 2 weeks dealing with these attorneys over in California because Elizabeth and Laura had a falling out because Laura Propone's a Scientologist. And apparently she was being real pushy into making Elizabeth be one, and Elizabeth did not want to be a Scientologist. So my dad thinks this shit's hilarious. I could hear him on the phone, like, laughing drunk. He's talking to Laura Propone directly, being like, well, where's the split, Laura? Because, like, I mean, Elizabeth wanted $4 million from this deal because they were supposed to open this line of beauty salons and stuff along with this book. So, I mean, there was a decent amount of money involved in this project. And so next thing I know, me and my dad are in the car one day, and we've both been drinking. We're going to a bar, and he calls Watts, and he's like, you know what, I'll have Rusty make a diss song for Laura Propone. I grabbed the phone, and I was like, Watts, I would never do some dumb shit like that. Don't listen to my dad. And he's like, look, he's like, I'm dealing with a cult. He's like, there's a good chance my phone is tapped right now. He's like, I'm not trying to be paranoid, I'm being prudent. And that was the last time I ever talked to this dude, Watts. So next thing I know, I go home to Philadelphia. I lived at this place for a year and a half. All right. I get home and I check my mailbox, and there's a flyer for Scientology. It's got a picture of a dude on a life-size chessboard moving chess pieces like around, and then it was like an invitation to come to their Race Street address in Philadelphia, but it was addressed to a lady named Maria Gonzakowski. All right, and so I asked my landlord. They say no lady's ever lived there by that name. And so, but these things kept coming. They kept coming in the mail, and they'd be different pictures on them, and there were invitations to their Philadelphia headquarters, which I thought was highly coincidental, considering, you know, what this dude just said on the phone. And he worked for Nike, Nickelodeon. I mean, he's worked with major stars, major motion picture production companies, and this dude really thought his phone was tapped by the Scientologists. And it's just weird. I got home, and then I started getting all this bullshit in the mail, and then next thing I know, they cut off all contact with my dad. The book came out. It debuted at number 12 on the New York bestseller list in March of 2016. My mom ended up dying. I went to jail. And when I got out, I was just telling people about this recently. The dude Watts hung himself. Like, you can look all this shit up. His girlfriend's name's Elizabeth Troy. She co-authored the book with Laura Propone and Watts Wacker. He just hung himself, like, I want to say in November, man. And he just got married to Elizabeth. The whole thing's fucking whack. But I wanted to tell this story because, like, if something happens to me, not by the Scientologists, but if some dumb shit, I just want to, like, have this story documented. But I got a couple more crazy ass stories. But that's my experience with Hollywood and Scientology. This is Rusty Lee signing out.